Welcome to the Green Goddess podcast, where we explore sacred medicines and the evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Tara. Today, our guest is Karen Oneel. Karen Oneel works in Mexico at a clinic that serves Iboga and Ibogaine, which is an extract of Iboga, an African root bark, to help people with addictions overcome them. Iboga is really well known for helping with the opioid crisis. Many people go and they're addicted to heroin and have other problems like that. And after a deep session with Iboga, are known to come away having no desire to use that substance ever again. Karen actually assists people with those processes with integration and aftercare, among other things. And she's also someone who's benefited from this medicine in a different way. It cured her eating disorder, which is bulimia. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. I met Karen at the Gaian Mind Psychedelic Conference, where we were both speakers this summer. And we had a pretty instant connection, and we've had a chance to share some hot-bay medicines together, and I got a chance to serve combo to Karen, which was awesome. She's a trooper, very tough lady.
And by the way, that combo completely halted the process of onset of pneumonia, which I'm prone to. So I was really glad you were around.
Yeah, combo is really incredible. It's just such an amazing medicine. It's such a powerful antibacterial. So I loved that you asked for it and that it worked really well for you. I know you were really needing it in that moment, and you didn't want to have to use pharmaceuticals, and so it was really cool to be able to give you combo frog medicine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, anyone who's not familiar with combo frog medicine, this is a medicine from the Amazon that has incredible curative properties of all different kinds: anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral. It helps with pain, and it's a purifier of the physical body and the emotional body and the spiritual body. It clears karmas. It's amazing. If you want to know more about it, go to my website, peacelovetara.com, or go to YouTube and watch some of my YouTube videos about it. And you can find that at Tara Rose Sacred Medicine. That's youtube.com/Tara Rose Sacred Medicine. But today we're going to talk about Iboga. And I'll tell you, Karen, I got excited about Iboga when I read this book that came out years ago by Daniel Pinchbeck called Breaking Open the Head. I don't know if you've read that book.
I have not.
It was the book that introduced me to the entheogens, really. And the author, Daniel, he wrote all about how it gave people a glimpse of their death so they would know what that was going to be someday. And he described it as this stern, like, grandfather teacher that comes and shows you all these patterns and these lessons in your life. And it sounded like really intense, but also really cool. I was very, very intrigued. So I've never had the opportunity to receive Iboga. I hope someday I will. But I'm really curious about it. I'd really like to hear about your journey.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's the granddaddy of all psychoactive medicines. It is a stern teacher and a loving teacher, but when you are under the influence of it, you're actually having visions from your life. Everybody's different, but it's very common to have visions of your life that are unique to you, and it just shows you where you've gone wrong. And in my case, I literally had life lessons show up in block letter form. This is what you need to do. And it was a series of 6 to 10. I don't remember. I wasn't in a position to write it down, but it was all common sense things like don't procrastinate and eat healthy food and take care of your body and all the basics that we know to do, but I wasn't doing them. It was about the most amazing thing I've ever done. Now, I was, as you mentioned, bulimic, so I was not detoxing off of a medicine, off of a drug. So when you're detoxing also, that makes it a little rougher journey physically. So I was just in awe. You're in this state where your body your mind and your soul are all talking to each other like they are right now, like yours are, like mine are, but we're focused on this conversation or the work that we're doing or watching traffic or whatever it is we're doing at this moment. If we're aware of everything all the time, we would not be able to function. But in this state, you are able to really see things without the emotion and without the defenses.
It must be hard to look at all the things you feel like you've done wrong.
It was, but it was also done in a matter-of-fact way. So for me, having been bulimic, it showed me figuratively, because I'm a graphic designer, I think in images, combining words and images. So that's, I believe, why it worked this way for me. It showed me culverts of vomit, like, I don't know, a big culvert pipe, like maybe 10 inches in diameter with vomit coming out at a whitewater speed. And the next image was sinkholes, like you might see on a National Geographic movie, of, the earth imploding into itself. And that was also vomit. And figuratively, what it was saying is, Karen, this is what you've done with your life. This is where your focus has been. And this is what it looks like. So I wasn't offended by that because it was true, and I was taking the medicine to stop that. So what this does for addicts is it's a very dirty molecule, and it goes through every area of the brain and scrubs it clean. So you're reset to a point, at least in your tastes and in your habits, of being a child, say 7 years old, 10 years old. And a 7-year-old child isn't going to want to drink alcohol or smoke on a crack pipe or anything like that. And it interrupts it for about 30 days. And in that 30 days, you have the chance to learn some new healthy habits and put those in place.
That's
so
really
a magic
cool.
pill or cure, but honestly, there is nothing else on earth like this. So I did this 4 years ago as a deep dive. And when I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I did mushrooms, I did acid, but it was more of a party element type thing, a fun thing to do. And I really had no idea that all of these medicines have spirits, and they're teaching plants, every last one of them.
They're amazing. That's something that really excites me about the plant medicine world, is that they're teachers. So just like you said, they're our elders, and they're here to impart messages and guide us on our human journey. Because isn't life so confusing? Isn't it just so confusing to be a human? I find it just extremely confusing
Really,
all the time.
so many things we have to do and all these expectations. We're all born perfect, right? And the world puts all these things on us. We're born into a certain family, a certain culture. Things are expected of us. We go to school. We have expectations. We have dysfunctions all around us. We have all these things we need to do. And while we do need to do those things, they tend to rob us of how special we are. We lose focus on that because we are working on what is expected of us culturally and socially. And while I'm not suggesting you put that on the table, on the shelf altogether, when you're actually in touch with your true self, which is what these medicines do, and especially Iboga, it shows you who you are. And while it doesn't cure, no medicine cures anything when we're talking about psychedelics anyway, it does give you insights, and then it's up to you to actually do the work. And that's the part that's not so much fun, to actually do the work. How do I put this into practice? If my experience with ayahuasca, it almost always shows me, be kinder to your mother, love and support your mother. That message comes through every single time. So,
Wait,
but that doesn't
literal
fix
mother
anything.
or
No,
excuse me?
my biological mother. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Okay. So, because I
Yeah,
mean, she's definitely the earth, ayahuasca. So I'm wondering if you
that
meant,
too.
kinder to
Absolutely,
Earth
that
Mama.
too. And ayahuasca in particular. Well, I'm really a nature girl. I'm happiest when I'm running around barefoot, and connected to
Yeah.
the earth. I live, I wake and sleep by the sun. If it, like wintertime right now, when it's getting darker, like at 5 o'clock, I start nodding off, running into walls, slurring my speech. I'm really tied to the earth. But yeah, I mean, earth can be, mother can be a metaphor for just about anything. But in this case, it's my biological mother, who has had a very traumatic life, been very misunderstood, is elderly, is terminal, and just needs to be loved and understood. So
Oh,
knowing
okay. So you're saying
that,
you're saying that the contrast between Iboga and ayahuasca here.
Right, right. So the ayahuasca probably helps you more with the emotional things. The Ibogaine, or the spirit of Iboga, is like, look, you need to get your stuff together here. You've been really messing up, and it's time for you to stop. And here's what the ugly look like, and here's what I want you to do. That was my experience, and that's a fairly common experience. So we do the medicine, ayahuasca, and 5-MeO-DMT, which Bufo Olivarius, we call it Bufo in Mexico. Those are medicines for after the Ibogaine, to kind of help after you've had this beating, because Iboga will beat you up a little bit, and more so if you're detoxing off of alcohol or a drug like meth or opioids. It'll put you back into the warm embrace of, hey, we're all in this together. We're all infinite. We're all perfect. The universe has your back. You just need to do the things that you want to do and invite the things into your life that will serve you better, and ditch the things that won't. And you're perfect, and I love you. And that's what those softer medicines do.
I
And
see.
that's why
really...
we come with our clients.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So at your clinic, what's it called again?
Serenity Beach Wellness. And then after that, there's Ibogaine Treatment Center. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram.
Serenity Beach Wellness Ibogaine Treatment Center. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so at your center, do people come and work with both Iboga and then the other medicines you mentioned?
Absolutely.
So they do.
Each client is different and their needs are different. So when we start talking to them on the phone, we assess what the nature of their addiction is, what they want out of the medicine. And we're really about harm reduction. We don't subscribe to the all abstinent all the time and, measuring your time, in days or weeks or months or years. But what are your primary addictions? What are your secondary addictions? Which ones are you willing to leave behind, and which ones are you willing to manage? So a typical example would be a client says, no more heroin and meth for me. Absolutely not, but I'm not giving up cigarettes, or I'm not giving up gambling, or I'm not giving up coffee. I'm going to manage those. And interestingly enough, people that are successful with their recovery come to a point in time later where they do want to give up those things and have a plan to give up those things, but to just go cold turkey off of everything doesn't work very well, or else more people would be able to do it.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, do you want to share any more about your experience?
Absolutely. So for me, this was about bulimia, and I did this twice. And the first time, quite frankly, looking back, I really was looking for a magic pill. I had tried everything, and I was a pretty vicious bulimic. So for 32 years at that point, I had binged and purged from 6 to 10 times a day. So every 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
My whole life was dedicated to, how do I get it? How do I pay for it? How do I find it? How do I hide it? How do I avoid discovery? How do I lie about it if I'm confronted? What's my cover story? And that is really typical of any addict, no matter what the behavior or the substance is. So I was a hard case, and I needed to have it just interrupted for a little while. And it did. I was clean for 6 weeks, which was amazing. My clean time was measured in days for 32 years at that point. And there were days where, maybe I was only binging and purging 2 or 3 times a day. And as bad as that sounds, that was a major win. I was doing 12-step work. I was doing Zoloft and Prozac. I was an inpatient at a renowned eating disorder facility. I had lots of therapy, group therapy, support groups. I did all of this, lather, rinse, and repeat for a long time with varying degrees of minimizing, but nothing compared to that first 6 weeks I had completely free of the bulimia, at least in action. And because I didn't do the proper work, I had about a week to prepare. I didn't know about pre-care, setting intentions. I didn't know about aftercare very much. I knew a little, and I did what I could. So I knew I needed to take a month off my life. So I'm self-employed, or I was at the time, and I was able to, have a little money set aside. just chill, just go do the self-care things like yoga classes, nature walks, connecting with family and friends, the ones that were healthy for me. So that was all really good. But I wasn't really ready to give it up, it turns out. And I didn't have the proper preparation. So I bottomed out really badly about 2 years later, and I did it again. And at that point, I was ready to be done. I did some pre-care with a friend, just a little bit, but enough to help. I did some aftercare, myself, but I knew more about how to do it. And it's been 2 years now, free of that, a little more than 2 years.
That's really profound that you tried really everything that was available to you that's mainstream, and none of it worked, even though I'm sure it can work for other people to some degree.
It does. If you look at AA's own statistics, by somebody that goes to their first AA meeting today, 5% of those people that go today will be still sober off of alcohol in a year. So that's 5%. For that 5%, that's amazing. That's a lot of people, though. That's a lot of people. When you ramp it up a little bit to rehab and detox, and I'm including eating disorders in this too, just kind of generally, the figures go up to about 10 to 15%. And there's about 30% of people that can just stop an addiction cold because maybe a family member or a crisis, or somehow they find it within themselves to just stop, and they do. That's 30%. So you have a better chance of going it alone than you do by any of the traditional Western methods of healing. Now,
wow.
with Iboga, right? With Iboga and Ibogaine, you have about a 50 to 60% chance, and that's if you combine it with some pre-care and some aftercare. I mean, it's huge. This is the future of addiction recovery, and it's still in its infancy. And the center I work at is one of a handful that provides both. So I think in time, if we could look forward 20 years from now, things will be very different. A lot more people will be knocking on our doors. There will be a lot more places doing the work that we're doing. It's really powerful, and there's nothing like it. The medicine is amazing, and it's the easiest part. The work you do afterward to maintain and to define your new life, that's the hard part. That's the work that nobody wants to do. It's the drudge work, it's the digging the ditch. It's the getting your hands dirty. It's looking at your traumas and releasing them. And the medicines that we work with after the Iboga and Ibogaine really help turbocharge you to do that in a faster way, to just be done with it.
That's really, really cool. And it's exciting to hear about what these medicines are doing for the world. They're just so incredible. And
I'm in awe, absolute awe. I've seen miracles.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the miracles you've seen?
There's people turning their life around, people that had lives of crime or lives of regret, had not been present in their relationships, be it their partners or their spouses or their children, people really owning their own issues instead of being defensive about it, which is more common to do. Just say, wow, I did all these things and I feel really bad about it, and I'm going to make it right now.
Yeah. I just want to say, I think that is the key, because we all make mistakes, like all of us. And I don't think anyone's been alive on this planet that doesn't have some regrets, but it's just about owning it. It's being accountable and then changing, right? That's the key.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. And then, it's what gives hope that there even could be a change, because I'm sure that a lot of people stuck in the cycle of addiction are feeling hopeless and feeling despair, which just makes it worse, because when you feel like that, that's when you go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's the judgment from society, and then the judgment from ourselves, because the more defensive someone is, the more they know they have things that they don't feel good about. So it's about turning that around and not beating ourselves up, but owning it and saying, okay, but here is how I'm going to do it differently. And when I return home, here's what my life is going to look like. And here are the steps I'm going to take. So someone has some more tools in their recovery bag than they've ever had before. And it involves finding a tribe, like you and me. You and I met through a tribe, right? And we're seeking out like-minded people with which to connect and bond through.
Right.
And what every person has the chance to do where they're living and what their situation is. You seek out the like-minded people. And most people don't do that, especially in the United States, where we're pretty nuclear and we're pretty disconnected. But we have this underground movement of spirituality that's been going for, I don't know, a few decades at least. And the
Right.
psychedelics kind of, boost that and everything. But even without that, you can go to a breathwork class. You can, you can join a meetup group and go for hikes. There's lots of ways to find similar people that have your back, that love and support you, that care about you, that listen to you and respect you. And that's what we don't have because we are in the Western world isolated. We have our big yards and our big cars and our items of conspicuous consumption and all of that. Excuse me, my mouth is a little dry. And so that takes us further away from our truer selves than who we are meant to be. So everybody that believes they have a specific plan or a general plan of knowing what to do, and maybe they tweak it as they go back home, but they have a good idea of, wow, this did not work for me, and here is what I need to stay clean, because staying healed of my primary addiction is utmost importance for me to be happy, for my loved ones to be happy.
Yes. And, another thing that I want to say is that there's this like huge stigma around addictions. But what I look at them as is I feel like when somebody is gravitating towards a drug, what they're really gravitating towards is a medicine. I think there's this deep innate understanding within each of us that when we are hurting, the plants will help us. And I think that for many people, the closest thing to a plant medicine when you're in pain might be heroin. And that is a plant medicine. I mean, it's a poppy, right? Ultimately, it's like it's from the poppy flower. Or even cocaine is a very adulterated form of the coca plant. So, I mean, I think for a lot of people, the reason that there's this draw, it really comes down to wanting to connect with the earth, and it's just in a distorted way. And I think even with an eating disorder like binge eating or bulimia, there's that trying to nurture yourself with the food, which is including plants typically, or at least stuff of the earth. It's like trying to put the earth in your body to nurture yourself, and then the throwing up part is like trying to deal with the fact that this is too much, too many calories, not healthy for your body, and also that sense of trying to purify something. So it's like there's something within these, they are dysfunctional ways to deal, but there's something in them that makes sense to me as a medicine person, as a person that understands how the sacred medicines are operating. Like, again, being someone that offers combo to people and has had a lot of combo treatments, there's the purge aspect, the throwing up, the vomiting. It's very cathartic. It's really powerful for cleansing emotional baggage. I can see why there would be this natural inclination towards purging, like when you're suffering emotionally. That just makes sense to me. So I think it's like the medicines are...
That's really insightful, and you actually hit it on the head. All of these things are or these kind of extreme addictions. Everybody has addictions. We'll have, everybody walking around, we have addiction patterns in our behaviors. Are we control freaks? Do we micromanage? Do we spend too much money? Yeah, some people might be raging. They might be passive aggressive. But I'm talking about addictions in our patterns and our behaviors and our thoughts and our reactions to people. So the most extreme people end up abusing a substance or get caught up in an addictive behavior, and they're the ones that end up needing help because it gets to a point of crisis where their lives can't be managed and function because the addiction is overshadowing it. It's running their lives, harming their money, harming their relationship, with everybody, whether it's job, family, anything like that. And so they just want to numb themselves from the pain. And Gabor Mate says, and I fully agree, that all addictions are caused by trauma. So don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. Let's cure the source of the pain. So the medicines, the sacred medicines we're talking about, are really helpful, are really amazing healing tools to just get you to that place a little faster than going it alone or doing the willpower or counting days of, being abstinent from one particular behavior or another. And in my case, as you were saying with the bulimia, it actually turns out, and I didn't realize this until about a year ago, but I was, in a sense, recreating an ayahuasca ceremony or a combo ceremony. I was using something in a harmful way, which is not part of the medicines, but I was using something to make myself feel better about whatever trauma it was that I had, and then purging for that cleansing effect and getting rid of what didn't serve me, which was having 5 pounds of food in my stomach, right? And
Right.
so once I realized that, I realized the connection of all of these things, the exact connection you're mentioning. It's the connection to the earth, the thing the earth provides: food, cocoa leaves, opioids, coming from poppies. I mean, everything comes from the earth and everything has a purpose. And a healed drug addict can go to the hospital, have surgery, and get opiates again if they have done all of the work and made peace with all of the traumatized parts of themselves and healed those and released those. They can use prescription medicines when they need to for a short period of time, and it's just fine. And that's what's truly amazing. A place for everything and everything in its place. That person is now healed and functioning. And of course, you always have to keep track, keep check on yourself, be mindful, of at all times about your things, about staying present in your life, about being open to change and challenge and pain, because growth comes from that and lessons come from just navigating any day that we have in our, in our particular life on any given day.
Well said. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your particular journey with Iboga? Do you mind to tell us maybe what the actual process looks like? I've heard that it's a multi-day process, whereas like with ayahuasca, it's maybe 6 or 8 hours. I've heard that Iboga is much longer. Would you take us through the process?
Right. There's several ways of doing it. I think I mentioned earlier that it depends on the client, how we treat them. So for Iboga, there are a couple of ways to do it. You can do a flood dose, which is a heavy dose, where you are flat on your back, you're ataxic, you're sensitive to light. You might have soft music in the room or Boweedy music, where actually the Iboga first was discovered and used at coming of age ceremonies or spiritual initiation practices, or someone that had a trauma from a war or, losing a loved one. So it had a specific use in that culture, and their music had polyrhythms and binaural beats. And when you listen to particular kinds of music, it helps the medicine work better in your brain. The brainstem distributes it, it cuts it up through the cerebral cortex, and you're disabled a little bit. You need help walking to the bathroom. You have no depth perception. And for me, the first thing that I noticed, actually the very first thing before things really started happening, I noticed my PTSD, which I had considerable sexual trauma. It was just gone, like poof, gone. And I'm like, wow. And I don't even know how I knew, but I knew. The next thing I saw was spirit animals. Just kind of, again, my eyes are closed. I have an eye mask on. I'm in a dark room. And I see spirit animals, and it was a cobra and a serpent is a really good omen, historically, at least in the Amazon. I don't know about other cultures. And then my spirit animals, which are cats, large cats, panthers, tigers, lions, cheetahs. And these are all animals of change and of being a warrior and of being strong and resilient and focused. And I found that to be really interesting. And from there, I went right into the visions that I mentioned, the culverts of vomit and, the earth imploding on itself. And the third thing I saw after that was car crashes, really bad car crashes. And I've never been in a car crash. So it was all very symbolic, but I knew exactly what it meant. And from there, I went into the life lessons, where I had these letters appearing, great big red letters, just with 2 or 3 words telling me what to do. Do this, don't do that. Keep things simple, make your life manageable, those kinds of things. And from there, I just went on and saw scenes from my life, that some of which I didn't remember and some of which I did. I saw, don't ask me why, but I saw writing a note when I was in first grade and passing it to someone else in class. And I remember thinking, oh, I remember. I remember writing that. But I have no idea what purpose it showed. When I had these life lessons, whenever anything was presented to me in a letter, it would be really big, and then it would get smaller, 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 and kind of a stop action movie effect where it would go to the right and disappear. I also noticed if I would say a word like cat, I would either see the word spelled out or it would show me a cat. I found that I could direct it a little bit in what I wanted to see. And the whole time, and for me, it was not as spiritual as it was scientific because I'm really interested in the brain. So the whole time throughout this whole experience, in the upper left-hand corner of my brain, I saw a little icon of my brain, and I could see the activity in my brain. I could see the molecules moving around, and it was like an animated GIF. But it showed me exactly
Wow.
what was. Yeah. And as the visions faded, like 4 to 6 hours later, it got more faded, so it wasn't in color anymore. It was just like a light tan against the background, and then it eventually went away. But the visions part lasted for me about, I would say, 4 to 6 hours, and I'm still flat on my back. And then you begin the period of integration where you're starting to wonder what all that meant. And I was older when I took it for the first time. I was 55 and I was 57 the second time I took it. So I found it to be really hard on my body. I needed to rest for quite a few days, and I was sensitive to light. I was wearing sunglasses inside for a couple of days, and that's not so typical, but I'm really sensitive to anything, to medicine. If I drink a cup of coffee, I better do it in the morning because I'm going to be bouncing off the walls all day. So that's just me. But in older people, it does tend to be a little bit harder on the body. And I just felt, especially the second time, I listened to binaural beats specifically for bulimia after the peak experience. And I could hear and feel my stomach repairing itself. It was a crackling sound, and that's exactly what was happening. It was just going through every area. The medicine in my brain was controlling every area of my body, saying, this is how it's going to be now, because this is the way you were born to be. You were born to eat food, have a healthy relationship with food, eat it when you need it, don't eat it when you don't. And it was really that simple. And I'm just amazed that nature has all of these things for us to heal. I think we know maybe a fraction. There have to be cures for, cancer or heart disease out there that we haven't found yet or thought of yet. I've just believed this for quite a while now.
Oh, absolutely. I think in a broad way, all of the diseases that we see in humanity are really at a root cause emotional. I think that they're energetic and emotional. They're, like you said, like with addiction, I think everything wrong in the world, it really comes from trauma. It comes from the ultimate trauma is really a separation from love. Because really what's happening right now is that with this ascension and awakening and all the medicines, it's a return to love. It's a return to connection to something greater than ourselves. And ultimately, the understanding is that we can come to is that Source is actually very benevolent, and that all the dark stuff, all the suffering, all of that really isn't really the plan, isn't the intention. It's what happens when we, as a species, have turned away from that love, and it's now an opportunity to come back to it. Because the spirit world, at least the ones that I work with as an intuitive healer, they're really all about blessing everybody. The desire is to bring blessings and happiness and joy and peace to everybody, and health and well-being, because we are the same. We are Source, and Source isn't looking to suffer. But this experience that we're having on the planet of massive disharmony, really, it comes down to an experiment whereby I feel like Source, the creator, wanted to know what it is, wanted to know itself. And one of the best ways to learn is contrast. And so we decided on some level to experience duality, through contrast. But I feel like the experiment went a little crazy. I don't know if that's right, but my feeling is
I
and,
absolutely,
and
and I simplify it down. My understanding at this point being it, the universe will do anything we want it to do. Wherever we put our focus, we're going to get more of that. So you can call it the law of attraction. To him that more shall be given. And I think it's just, this is just how it is. And everything is an opportunity and everything is a lesson. And so when we go through the darkness and come out the other side, we can get to a place like myself after being a good part of all of my adult life. Not that I didn't have a wonderful life at many times. I certainly did. I had a family. I had good experiences. I traveled. I had some satisfaction with the work that I did. But most of my preoccupation was with my addiction. So that was always, the dark shadow in my life. And so here I am to an age where I'm almost 60 years old. And for quite a while, I was drowning in the shame and the regret. And then very quickly it went away because I found a purpose and I found something that I love to do to pay it forward. And I just couldn't be happier with my life and the things that I'm doing. And there's really, when you get through the other side, you realize there is a value in a purpose to whatever those bad things were. And it sounds trite, but I believe it to be true, having gone through that myself recently.
yes. And I like what you shared because too, I feel that the medicines are ultimately restoring our power. And then it's up to us to use that power that we now have when we're freed from that suffering to focus on what we want to develop more of in this world. So the rainbow prophecy, it talks about how there's going to be these people on the planet and they're going to restore the physical well-being of the earth through their actions and their deeds. What that says to me is that we're using our creative consciousness, understanding that it begins with intention and thought and everything, but then we charge it with emotion and with action, and those become our rituals. And when we're in our full power, what we're really doing is we are creating. When we're conscious, we are creating. And so the world outside of us is a manifestation. It's a collective manifestation. And so those of us called to work with the medicines are, I feel, correcting that manifestation on the level of consciousness. And then we can then use our restored power to then begin looking at what's good in the world and growing that. One of the caveats, or not caveats, but the I don't know, one of the traps, I think, is what I mean to say, that we can fall into once we have more power. I'm speaking as someone who's done a lot of healing work, received just so much healing work. You can get stuck in being problem oriented and getting used to having stuff to heal. You can get identified with that, and then you can have sort of like an old set point where you're just used to life not feeling that good. And then the challenge is actually you can get to a healed place, and then the challenge is beginning to really accept that up level in your life and beginning to use your creative power to witness all the good in your life and start to dwell on it and let yourself receive the benefits of that. And as you do, knowing that you're then witnessing more and more beauty in the world and creating more and more beauty in the world. And I think that's what we're really meant to do, is to turn our attention to appreciating the medicines and appreciating Mother Earth and appreciating all the beauty of nature. And as we do that, in our own lives, I think celebrating our own lives, I think that heals the rift between humanity and nature, and the rift between on some level, humanity and the creator. Because I think because there's so much suffering, a lot of people have turned away from spirituality, feeling like, well, if there's suffering in the world, then I don't believe that there's goodness at the core of whatever created us. But I really feel like the medicines are here to help us reconnect with the creator, which is love, and to find that within ourselves. And then to empower love to bring solutions. I think our ultimate work is to catch the love frequency and stay in that vibration as much as we can.
I could not agree more, and you said it perfectly. It all starts with self-love hard
Yes.
to do a long list of things to feel bad about, but that's where we start. That's where we start with the work with our clients. We tell them the first day we're hugging them, the next day we're saying we love them, even though we don't know them yet, because we're coming from a foundation of love and healing. And that's what I learned working with my mentor last year until very suddenly he didn't preach this, but he lived it. And so we're carrying on in his work to do his work on earth. I think he did his work. He was done. He's off to a better place. Whatever he's doing, I'm sure he's happy, but we're continuing that right now because it's really important work, and it's challenging. It's frustrating at times. It's not easy, but the paycheck is in seeing people transforming their lives. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like these medicines are the mechanisms and the conduits for love to transform.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, Karen, I think this has been an amazing interview. I kind of want to leave it here. We've covered so much. Is there anything you want to add?
I don't think so. Just thank you so much for the opportunity to spread the word. I do want to say that this works for eating disorders, and that's not very well known. I'm kind of a pioneer in that I'm the one that comes out and speaks very openly about bulimia and anorexia because nobody really wants to talk about it. And everybody knows someone or a bunch of someone's. Bulimia involves gluttony and it involves vomit and things that people don't want to talk about, and it's about maintaining that perfect image. And when you drag something out of the closet into the sunlight and expose it, it allows for change. And the reason I say that is at least someone that uses drugs or alcohol, they have the opportunity for their own culture there. They can have drinking buddies, they can have drug buddies, they have to secure things so they have interactions, but bulimics do not have binge and purging buddies. That just doesn't happen. So we are literally in the closet, and this problem is more huge than anybody could possibly realize. There's no statistics on deaths. There's no statistics on what it is, but it's very, very common, and it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be known that Iboga and Ibogaine can relieve that if someone is ready for the help. And so that's my main message on top of working with the addicts that I do, working with the people and the shamans that I do, to help provide all of these medicines and the recovery coaching work that I do. It all works together very beautifully when someone's ready to receive that.
Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate your message. And that's right. I mean, people are suffering, and if they have an eating disorder, they're suffering alone, and they're probably not talking about it. Maybe talking about it to a friend or two, but you're right. There's so much shame around it, and there's so much that one doesn't want to admit. So it's really wonderful that you're coming out of the closet and you're willing to own that you had that experience and make it okay, like release the taboo for others. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I appointed myself. And I'm going to keep appointing myself because it does need to be talked about. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share what little I know, how much I love doing this kind of work, and how grateful I am for people like you in my life that spread the message and share the love and share the wisdom.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, the purpose of this podcast really is to be a platform so that the medicines can get to more people and they can be understood as they really are. Because I think that there's a lot of interest in the psychedelics and the entheogens and everything right now. But at this moment, there's a real need for education. So that's really my goal, is to inspire, to educate, to empower, and hopefully to entertain a little bit too.
And I think you succeeded on all levels. Thank you so very much.
Good. Yes, thank you. And how can people get a hold of you if they want to contact you and ask you questions?
The best way to get me is on Facebook Messenger or on Facebook. My name is Karen Oneel, and the last name is spelled different. There's only maybe two of us, so you got a pretty good chance of finding me. Karen Oneel on Facebook, or my direct phone number, which also works in Mexico. This is a United States phone, 789-3636. Or you can also Google Serenity Beach Wellness and find our website and ask for me, or find us on Facebook or Instagram. So I'm pretty easy to find.
That's great. That's so nice of you to give out your personal contact info, because I'm sure there's people who are going to listen to this that, have bulimia or have anorexia, or just feel really drawn to experience Iboga in this context and want to ask you more about it. So thank you for being so available and sharing your story.
Well, thank you for receiving.
Yeah. And as I end every episode, may the plants be with you.
I love it.